What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and more Birthright coverage here as we get to the last of the main domains here for the Northern Marches. And of course, we saved the biggest and baddest for last, the Gorgon's Crown. So the main bad guy of the setting, not just for the sort of classical Annuarian setting, but really in many ways most of the setting as a whole. Now, there's certainly other major villains that we'll cover, but really, I mean, the Gorgon's Crown just and the Gorgon himself, by extension, himself or itself, whatever you want to call it at this point, is just a sheer force. And we'll review the Gorgon's stats separately at some point from the handout, essentially the reference sheet that we get with the core box set. But let's jump into the domain itself. So invariably, in some way, shape, or form, this is a tool that the DM should use. You know, at some point, your campaign should have to deal, whether directly or indirectly, with the Gorgon's Crown as some sort of threat, whether it's just a sort of tentative sort of probing attack here, or just like an all-out assault. So just depending on the campaign, but you know, the setting mentions that, you know, he hasn't been active for a number of years, so it's at some point that can always be like a major sort of panic world event, essentially, that the DM can throw at you and may even enforce you know, current enemies to sort of band together to have a hope of sort of blunting or stopping an attack by the Gorgon's Crown and his puppet domain. So let's jump in and see what the DM all has to play with here. So Lawful Evil, not available for PCs, obviously. 17 provinces here, so none of them are overly well settled, as you might expect, but that's all right. The Gorgon isn't playing by the normal rules here. So most of these are going to be essentially unknown, as it says here, to the people at large. But basically the ones that are known are Cal Scythorak and then Stone's End in the south, as these border a lot of the domains, or at least ones are the people are, again, familiar with. So lots of other things here, but you know, that could be something that brave or foolhardy adventurers might be able to sort of explore and sort of scout some of the domain. Now, whether the Gorgon, you know, allows that is maybe part of the fun itself. You know, certainly based on the description here, as we'll get into, you know, he kind of knows basically everything that's going on in his domain, so it might get you in a false sense of security if you happen to find yourself adventuring here. And certainly, you know, if you send any sort of less than just top level scouts to even investigate here, chances are, you know, they're not coming back. If anyone ever would, you know, come back, if that you sent them here to sort of scout the domain. So again, as you might expect, the Gorgon 100% controls all the law and the sources. So, and as we'll see again, his character stats and everything basically just redonkulous. You know, like extremely high level fighter, very high level wizard, especially for this setting. So you know, just almost godly levels of power there. The only temple where there are some temples is basically the Hand of Azrai, which is again the main evil god, or former evil god. But anyway, so the law, again, 100% his. The religion of the Gorgon's Crown falls under the purview of the Hand of Azrai, a mysterious priestess from the lands of the east. She is not blooded. If she were, the Gorgon would have consumed her long ago. She was devoted herself entirely to the Gorgon and will never work against him freely. No one's foolish enough to try taking any magical holdings here. And guilds, basically, no guilds maintain a presence here, as he does not engage in trade. He doesn't need to. He'll just take. So Regency here, basically an almost unlimited supply. So again, it shouldn't ever be the case that you can really sort of come up with, I guess, like a war of attrition or a game plan of attrition against the Gorgon. That shouldn't be a viable option for players to explore, really, unless you somehow united the entire continent behind you. So, Regency generated accumulated 90 plus an additional from the puppet states, so 90/200, so just, again, virtually unlimited. Treasury, 150 gold bars, which just, again, bonkers. So, again, really should not run dry. If he were running low, certainly could invade and steal anybody, really. So the Gorgon's army is, again, just absolutely massive, and again, only things like, you know, only domains like Avenel and Borrowing, and, you know, Gore to an extent, could hope to really stand up for a time. Moriad has enough to sort of blunt an assault, but again, is simply outmatched and outnumbered. So again, the major players of the Anywhere setting, the major NPC players, would have to certainly contribute if they can put aside their differences long enough, and whatever your domain may have available, but really should be improbable, if not unlikely, that your domain by itself should be able to stand solely against the Gorgon, at least not initially, right? So we have 4 units of Dwarf Guards and Dwarf Crossbows, 5 Goblin Infantry, 4 Goblin Cavalry, 3 Gnoll Infantry, and 3 Gnoll Marauders. Those are always nasty. 3 Mercenary Infantry, 2 Mercenary Cavalry, 2 Mercenary Pikemen, and a unit of Scouts. So that's just sort of the semi-official stuff here, but rumors also whisper that the Gorgon employs giant kin, including Foimorian in his army, and possibly even a dragon. So you might not need to pull that one, as there are just so few dragons in the setting, and really, I don't think the Gorgon needs that on top of everything else, right? That would kind of diminish just the sheer evil and terror of him if he needs to rely on something like that. So really, you should keep the players focused on him, and then maybe some of these other non-human allies. I don't think the dragon, again, is something I would want to pull on players, and they don't really necessarily give you any more direction than that. The Anshe rules the Gorgon's crown with a fist tighter than iron. Once called Racine, the half-brother of Halen, who's the current sort of main good god, and Roll, the Gorgon found himself lured to the side of evil with the blandishments of Azrai. So he used to be human, for those who did not know, and part of the lore. And we'll start a lore series here at some point as well. None proved abler than the Black Prince in the strategies of evil. He quickly rose to become the champion of Azrai and absorbed much of the god's essence at Daismar. All Ceruleans consider him the first and mightiest of the Anshe. It was the Gorgon who halted the advances of the Annuarian armies under Roll, and the Gorgon who tore apart the Annuarian Empire by killing its last Emperor Michael. So, pretty good novel to read there, too, for those who get a chance to. Don't remember the title of it offhand. So his crimes, really, too many and heinous to list, grow with every day. He keeps contact with the 2 new gods of evil, Krisha and Belnik, and secretly lusts after their power as well, but hasn't really necessarily found a way to take it yet. He owns at least 2 of the 12 Time weapons, and perhaps as many as 4 taken from the bodies of those stupid enough to challenge him in his place of power. So, don't go there thinking that really you should be able to ever take him on. He'll be happy to, take your head, basically, and your bloodline, and your gear, and everything else. Though the Gorgon has great power, perhaps more than any other creature in the world, he remains a master of subtlety, deceit, and lies. So he's constantly crafting rumors to destroy kingdoms and grind bloodlines into the dust. He plans his political moves with the patience that only a 2,000-year-old being can muster. So again, you should work as a DM. That would be really, one where you're constantly working sort of the long game against your players, just depending on what all involvement you want the Gorgon schemes to have in them. And really, again, should be able to hide his hand in that behind other multiple layers, so that your players are essentially constantly chasing and solving things, but never really suspecting sort of the true evil behind it. Anywarians say he harvests bloodlines like a vintner harvests grapes with great care and deliberation. He helps the scions of an individual line grow ever more powerful, and then subtly encourages them to seek him out. Only a few have provided even modest entertainment, but all have nourished his personal bloodline. So, he's basically just, again, a juggernaut that really you shouldn't realistically even dare to dream of challenging. Again, keep saying that, but we'll take a look at his card and his actual stats and everything in a separate video. Lieutenants, basically, does he really need them? Not so much, but so he replaces lieutenants basically every decade. Just there's sort of temporary conveniences and necessities that he needs to carry out some of his schemes, right? One of his current lieutenants, a crusty old dwarf named Kiras Earthcore, hails from the realm of Mur Kalad. This master tactician and fierce warrior hates the Gorgon with all his heart. He has planned a careful treachery to repay the monster for his years of servitude, a plan that now nears fruition. Kiras thinks the Gorgon doesn't suspect a thing. Well, probably, right? Probably does. But that could be a way where the Gorgon knows about that, but lets the dwarf continue his plans, and maybe through some possible situation, the dwarf may reach out to you if you happen to somehow have contact. And that could be a way that the Gorgon tries to sort of foolishly bait your either adventurers or rulers into challenging him. No other important non-player characters are here, but only one of them appears willing to make the journey again. I guess one of them, one scout here, Tamiris Bachier, seems insane enough to dare it. Some claim this cunning and headstrong fellow is more than a little unbalanced. He's said to know the Gorgon's crown in all its details and can guide explorers to its heart, but who would be foolish enough to want to do that? Yeah. So, I guess if you're looking for some quick fame or infamy, certainly worth, maybe the effort there, but again, if you become famous for exploring the Gorgon's domain and even managing to make it to his citadel, the Gorgon's going to hear about it at some point, and then you're going to be on his radar as well. So, an interesting idea, but maybe will be complex to pull off. Gorgon's crown, the largest kingdom in Annuir, borders Brecht and Rurik territory, covered in mountains and hills. It encompasses some of the most forbidding land in Annuir. High peaks carry snow year-round, and steep slopes drop loads of loose rock periodically onto the ravines below. Rogue towers pepper the kingdom, manned by twisted humans and goblins seeking to curry favor. There's also volcanic activity to deal with, so it's almost, it's essentially like, to just put it in like Lord of the Rings terms, it's essentially the Mordor almost of the setting, but maybe not quite as bleak. The capital itself, the province of Cal Scytharak, takes its name from the capital of the Gorgon's crown, known in Annuir as Battleweight. This obsidian and iron fortress sits in the forested province between two volcanoes. Its spiky spires and towers seem to rise just as high into the reddish sky as the volcanoes nearby. So again, popping back over to the artwork there, we're not given too much, but again, should just be a place of absolute terror and dread. Trade goods. As he doesn't trade, hey, there's nothing to trade. He does use the Fellport Harbor on the Darren Arm as his major sea access. So, yeah, he's not necessarily landlocked either, so he does have sea access if he really needs it. Allies. So he controls the kingdoms of Kiergaard and Brechtur, plus Morkalad and Markazor, which we've already reviewed. Though they each maintain a nominal ruler, they don't really have any authority or autonomy. Again, puppet rulers. So, yeah. And really, outside of that, who would want to have trade or diplomatic relations with him, right? Because if you're going to be running a domain, you're a blooded ruler, and he's basically just going to want to harvest your bloodline. So, yeah, that kind of explains that, right? Enemies. Short and simple, literally pretty much everyone, right? So, nearly all of Annuir stands as the declared enemy of him, yet hardly any kingdoms willingly take action because, again, well, unlimited resources, insane army, and again, the being behind it will just wreck any PC that you have, right? So even if you got yourself up to moderately high level, level 10 plus or so, even as a party, you're still not touching the Gorgon itself. Again, we'll hold the surprise here for those who've never seen the stats. And again, obviously we're taking this from 2nd edition up into 5th if you're playing with 5th edition. But just it's just unbelievable what the Gorgon actually can do, and just the way that this NPC is built, right? So again, not the big bad guy for just no reason at all. So key thing here is though, right, he has these periodic rampages, could be every few decades or something like that, so shouldn't be necessarily all the time unless you're kind of going for the all-out nuclear option here, where it's just like he's for whatever reason just decided to launch a massive invasion. So if you're looking for some sort of like end game type of scenario, that could be it. But it's fun to have that hanging over the PCs, and you can kind of use that as maybe like a ticking time bomb where there's increasingly rumors of him becoming more active, and where is he going to invade and stuff like that. So that could be really fun, and certainly something that should be a sort of an existential threat to your characters if they are indeed running domains of any kind, especially if you're nearby. Now, if you're further off in the south and stuff like that, maybe not as big of a worry, but again, if you're anywhere in the northern marches, certainly, or even eastern marches, really, something to worry about. So, special conditions. Folks say the Gorgon knows every footstep that transgresses upon his domain. Folks also say he flies and eats small children, so this rumor may hold no truth. However, anyone who would travel in the Gorgon's crown should remember that no one in 5 centuries has offered him even a slight challenge. So again, the last Emperor role was slain. Pretty good, again, battle in the books, but even he really couldn't do much against the Gorgon itself. So, your party, even with whatever gear they might accumulate, again, even if you're all like level 10 plus and stuff like that, again, really the Gorgon should just wipe the floor with you, and that's assuming you somehow got close to that to him, close enough to in his citadel. So that being said, getting him out of his domain could be a way of somehow weakening his power. So again, this would be something where if the campaign allows for it, and you're really trying to take him down and somehow rid the world of him once and for all. Again, there's probably some sort of epic level campaign here. Again, this would be something where the DM is going to have to do a lot of work and figure out sort of a viable way of doing that. But whatever strategies you come up with, certainly, I think would involve sort of getting him out of his domain, if that is needed, like where what sort of gives him his power, especially his sort of home capital province there, and then just finding ways to weaken and just sort of take him piecemeal, right? The sort of one final climactic battle could be an approach, but again, somehow you're going to have to essentially get pretty much all of Anawir, maybe some of the other peoples on your side and willing to commit to that, and you've got any number of other evil domains that may or may not want to have influence on that as well. So let us know in the comments, guys, how you have employed the Gorgon's Crown in your campaigns, whether you are the DM or as players, how have you dealt with the Gorgon's Crown? So let us know, guys, whether you're playing in the classic Anawirian setting, any of the Rurik realms or Brecht. Let us know, guys. Hit us up. Always fun talking about this awesome campaign setting. And again, this will wrap up all the political domains for the Northern Marches. We're going to take a look at the guilds, temples, and sources to wrap this up, and then we're going to finally migrate over to the last section, which will be the domains of the Eastern Marches, before we start moving on into many other things for Birthright. So hope you enjoyed. Thanks as always for stopping by and listening, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.